What's up, my dooski, the greedy baker? I appreciate that membership, dog. You allowed me to unlock another custom emoji slot, so now we got the turkey emoji for the live chat. Okay, so that's going to be a good old time. This turkey can fly, brother. So, had to come in here and talk about this whole Geico Honda team splitting up thing, but specifically what I want to talk about in this video, I know a lot of us knew about the Geico splitting from the FC Honda team, like, you know, as being their main title sponsor. A lot of you guys knew about that. That information came out like a few weeks ago, right? But now we're starting to get to that point to where FC Honda is really struggling to find a title sponsor for next year, and they might just potentially totally shut down. Like, no main official Honda 250 team for next year. So, yeah, that's a little insane. You know, at first we were kind of thinking FC Honda was just going to pick up a different kind of title sponsor, and it would basically be the same team, but just without Geico attached to it. But now it seems like the entire team might potentially be shutting down. And of course, this is just, you know, the kind of word of mouth from a lot of these different motocross news outlets. I keep up with them pretty much on a daily basis now that I am starting to, you know, be motocross news Spency boy, right? So yeah, this is fun to kind of cover this stuff. It's pretty crazy. You know, Geico has been a part of that 250 Honda team forever, dog. Like, it's been a long time, and I really wasn't expecting even Geico to leave at this point. I'm not really sure if that was like a 2020, you know, everybody's kind of hurting money, financial situation, or if it was just a matter of they've just been involved in motocross for so long and they were looking for something else. I don't really know why that's happening, but it's definitely shaking everything up because they had quite a few people on that Geico 250 Honda team. So now it's just going to kind of split all those guys up, right? So from what I've been kind of hearing, and some of you guys can let me know in the comments if you've heard more on this or whatever, and this could change in the future. Take everything I say with a grain of salt. A lot of this is kind of just some of the little random stuff I've been reading on Vermoto and Motocross Action and some of these other kind of, you know, news outlets and stuff. Basically what they're saying is, like, the Lawrence brothers are going to potentially be going to like the HRC 450 Honda team, but I guess they're going to be riding a 250, but under that HRC Honda tent. And then, I mean, some people were talking about Jeremy Martin potentially doing that same thing, or potentially going to Pro Circuit Kawasaki in Garrett Marchbanks' place. And that might be why they kind of got rid of Garrett Marchbanks. I don't know. That's a weird little connection there, but that might be what's happened there, because that was weird that they just, you know, basically booted Garrett Marchbanks when he just won Daytona this year. That was really bizarre, and I didn't really understand why they did that, but maybe it was a case of they had the potential to get somebody like Jeremy Martin on the team, and so then they just kind of had to boot Garrett Marchbanks out. I'm not really sure. But then, on top of all that, you had Christian Craig, which he's obviously not going back. Some people are talking about him potentially going to Star Yamaha. I don't really know about that. Of course, we're kind of getting into the, you know, the crazy times where everybody's like going to 5 different teams before you actually figure out what team they're really going to, right? So you can't really predict anything at this point. But as far as like the amateur, you know, they had a lot of amateur dudes that were just getting into it, like Carson Mumford. You had Joe Shimoda. Seems like there was another amateur in there. I can't really remember right off the top of my head, but either way, them dudes are basically just getting thrown on the curbside. Like, oh my God, could you imagine being Carson Mumford, getting on that, you know, FC Honda team way back in the day when he was really little, getting on that Honda team, you know, racing at Loretta's, building that connection with the team and trying to, you know, take that normal path to the top like a lot of these guys do. They build a relationship early on like Adam Cincerillo did with Pro Circuit Kawasaki. That's exactly what Carson Mumford did on that Honda team. He went to that 150 Honda. He rode that for a long time. Then he, you know, rode at the Monster Cup, did a lot of these other things, and then just started to get into the pro racing. I think last year might have been his first, but he only raced like a couple of outdoor races. That was like his first little starter year, and then this year would have been his first, I guess, full year. I'm not really sure, but he was like just getting started, and I think he got a 9th overall at this last outdoor round, so he wasn't doing bad by any stretch of the imagination. But just like that, everything can turn around, and something that's completely out of his hands, completely out of his control, like Geico splitting from the factory connection Honda team, something like that can happen, and then it can totally twist your world around. So now what the hell is Carson Mumford going to do? He spent all that time building that relationship with that one specific 250 Honda team, and it's like some of you boys thinking that just because you went and won some Loretta Lynn's races, or you're like on Team Green as an amateur, or you think you're some, you think you've made it, or you think you're like Eli Tomac just because you're on the Factory Connections, factory amateur program or whatever. Like, some of you boys need to understand, this shit can turn around in a heartbeat. This shit can fall apart in a heartbeat. You could be doing everything right. Like Carson Mumford was doing everything right all the way through his amateur career. Probably would have done pretty good next year on the Honda if he kept at it, hardcore. He just got into the pro racing, and then boom, the team just happens to shut down. Spent his whole life doing all that, and now he's not even on a factory team. Basically just got thrown out to the wolves. You know what I mean? So all of you boys thinking just because you're on this factory amateur program, or just because you got a 3rd at Loretta's, or just because you did this or that, it don't guarantee anything. It don't guarantee any longevity. It doesn't guarantee that you're going to stay on this certain team or whatever. It doesn't guarantee anything. So, that's what I'm saying. Carson Mumford didn't even really do anything wrong, and he's still basically losing his from Loretta's factory ride. He didn't have some crazy, terrible injury when he was in the pro racing, that like just totally would have been something that FC Honda would have kicked him off for. He didn't, have terrible, god-awful results that would be a reason to be kicked off of a factory team. It was just simply, wrong place at the wrong time, team shutting down, Geico pulling out, and then now it's like, what other team even has room for Carson Mumford? You know what I mean? A lot of these guys go through all that struggle to build that relationship with that factory team throughout the amateur program. Can you imagine all the ride days, all the years, all the time, all the people, all the relationships to just basically get destroyed overnight, and didn't even do anything wrong? Like, some of you boys just don't understand how cutthroat this motocross shit can be at that level. You don't understand it. Dog. So, yeah. Man, I don't know what's going on, but Geico Honda was like basically our main, household name sponsor, if you will. You know what I mean? Other than Geico Honda, what else is there? And I'm not talking about motocross dirt bike sponsors, right? Like with Yamaha, they have, Yamalube and all that kind of stuff. And then, Factory Connection is motocross suspension. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about outside source, big household name sponsorships. I mean, Geico was basically the only one. What other main sponsor is there? Everything else is just energy drinks, dude. If we didn't have energy drink sponsors for motocross and supercross, this shit would be nothing. Could you imagine that? We have Monster Energy Kawasaki, we have Rockstar Energy Husqvarna, we have Red Bull KTM. Holy shit. Dude, those energy drinks, I swear to God, those energy drink companies are keeping motocross sponsorships going right now. For real, bro. I mean, I can't even name a single other main title sponsor of one of these teams. It's Nike or something else. Whatever else. I mean, it could be anything Dell computers, I don't know. It could be anything. Downey. I mean, all these big time sponsors. You just don't see much of that in motocross, so it's kind of sad to lose Geico at this point. I mean, they had their whole outdoor motocross, like, TV broadcast based around that, like the whole, we're 15 minutes into this moto and you could save 15% or more on your Geico insurance, right? I've seen that a few times, right? So they had all that based around it. You obviously had a huge Geico Honda 250 program going on, so it's a big hit. And the fact that Suzuki's going downhill, this is really bizarre, really bizarre. I mean, basically at this point, all you really have, like, main factory teams is going to be Star Yamaha, Pro Circuit Kawasaki, Red Bull KTM, Rockstar Husqvarna, and then maybe this Gas team over here. But that's about it. I don't know of any other thing that's more cutthroat than motocross, like teams and shit. Because it's just so, like, let's just keep it real. If you're not on one of those factory teams, good luck. It's just so, there's such a gap between those select, like, 4 or 5 full-blown factory teams and then, all the other teams. It's just such, not only a gap in the kind of speed and the skill level they can go on the bikes, but also the amount of money that they earn. It's a huge gap difference on how much money you're going to make getting a top 5 versus getting anything worse than a top 5. I mean, it is massively different. If you're not getting in that top 5, you ain't really making, if you considered everything you got to pay to go racing, especially if you're a privateer and all that, you ain't making nothing. If you're not getting at least top 5s in 250 or 450 main events, and you're having to at least somewhat pay your way, every bit of money that you do make is just going right back into it. So it's a very, like, you're either making nothing or you're making a lot. There's not really much of an in-between with motocross, and there's just not a lot of time to prove yourself, It's like there's always another new fast kid coming up through the amateur ranks, So if you don't prove something big time, like in those first 2 or 3 years in that 250 class, you're going to get booted, bro. That's if you're lucky. You're lucky if you get 2 or 3 years chance to prove yourself. Then you basically got to be winning a championship in that amount of time to get a 450 ride. Then if you don't get a championship within those first 3 years on that main factory 450 ride, you're going to lose that too. So, I mean, it is so cutthroat. You got to learn that shit so quick. And even if you do everything properly, you still might lose the ride. Like in Garrett Marchbank's situation or in Carson Mumford's situation, you still might lose the ride. So it's just like oh my God, these kids need to calm down when they think they're, Eli Tomac when they're just on Team Green, or they think they're like, they've made it when they win a Loretta Lynn's race. It's like, bro, you ain't proved nothing yet. I hate to break it to you, but you ain't really proved anything yet until you're winning championships in the 450 class, period. There's been so many guys won championships, got all the way to point to winning Supercross championships on a 250, and then for whatever reason, they just can't really make it happen hardcore in those first 2 or 3 years on that 450 factory ride, and then they just never get back to that point again, right? You've seen it time and time again with these dudes that can go win a 250 Supercross championship, but then they lose that 450 factory ride, and then they can never get it back to that point. And then you basically just, if you're not winning 450 championships, you're losing money, bro. You're taking a net loss. If you considered all the money you had to put into it just to get to that point, it is a net loss if you don't win a 450 championship of some kind. I promise you it is. Promise you it is, bro. I think a lot of these kids think there's so much money in it, and they think it's like there's so many different factory teams and shit. It's just not like that, dude. It's not like that. So either way, they've been on that Geico Honda for colder than a witch's titty minute now, and it all seems to be shutting down at this point. So I'm just hoping these other teams can stay together. We don't kind of build a trend here where a bunch of these teams start shutting down and then the whole thing shuts down. I really hope it doesn't, turn into something like that, but we just got to get through 2020. And then hopefully everything will get better. So either way, appreciate you guys watching all the videos. Later, dude.